Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a house with two faces, one that smiles for guests above, and one that sweats and scrubs and sighs just beneath the floorboards. You're not here to ring the bell tonight, you're here to answer it. It begins the moment you push open the polished black door of a grand Victorian townhouse. For a heartbeat you see what the upper crust sees: lace-curtained windows, polished mahogany, a brass umbrella stand that probably cost more than your year's wages. But then, quick as a blink, someone pulls you through a narrow door to the left of the entrance. It's half hidden behind a standing fern. They shut it tight behind you, and the light disappears. Now you're behind the scenes. The hallway is suddenly low-ceilinged. The air's warmer, damper. You feel the floorboards slope slightly downward, and your shoes make a softer sound. Wood covered in old mats and stone tiles. There's a smell too. Not foul exactly, but lived in. Coal dust, boiled cabbage, soap that's tried its best. A woman hands you an apron, already stained. She doesn't ask your name. Breakfast room silver needs polishing. Don't dawdle. And that's it. You've arrived. Not as a guest. Not even as a person, really. You're now one of the invisible. Victorian homes, at least the grand ones, were often built like stage sets. Everything the guests saw was grand, smooth, perfect. But that illusion only held because of the army of workers hidden just behind it, moving like clockwork, but never being seen. There were often separate entrances, separate staircases, and even separate corridors so the family wouldn't ever have to lay eyes on the staff. You follow the woman's lead down a twisting corridor. She points out a few doors: pantry, scullery, servants' hall, larder. Then she points up. That staircase is for the butler and me. Don't use it. It's the first of many rules you're not allowed to question. You're taken down a level now, deeper. The walls here are unfinished brick. There's a faint roar through the pipes overhead. Someone's drawing a bath upstairs. The sound echoes strangely. In the dim light you pass a tall, thin man in a black waistcoat walking the opposite direction. He doesn't look at you. "That's Mr. Haynes," she mutters. "The butler. Do not speak, unless spoken to. He hates new boys." You nod, though you're not even sure what your job is yet. The kitchen is the warmest room so far, with a fire that's been burning since before dawn. You hear the hiss of fat in a pan and the rhythmic thud of a cleaver on a wooden board. There's also a flurry of voices, some low and tired, some sharp and bossy. You catch a snatch of a song. Someone's humming. In the centre of the room, there's an enormous table, and on it 3 trays of silverware waiting to be polished. You're directed to a bucket and a cloth. The paste smells of vinegar and chalk. "No streaks," the woman says, and disappears. You start polishing. Here's something they don't mention in the history books. Many servants polished silver not with fancy cloths, but with stale bread crusts. Crumbled and rubbed, they absorbed oil and lifted tarnish. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. And bread was cheaper than cloth. As you rub, you begin to hear more. Gossip about the lady of the house, how she sent away another governess. Whispers about the master, how he started locking his study door even during dinner. And then someone mutters about the girl from last month, and suddenly no one speaks. You don't ask. You're not paid to ask. What they don't tell you when you enter this house is that the job is only half about cleaning. The other half is vanishing. Soundlessly. Invisibly. The more invisible you are, the longer you last. A bell rings upstairs. It's not loud, but it echoes through a little metal contraption above the pantry door. The tag-marked morning room begins to sway. No one moves. Then someone jabs a thumb at you. "Well, go on then. She wants her letters." You wipe your hands, grab the little silver tray and climb the back stairs for the first time. You count each step. 32. The air gets cooler the higher you go. By step 15, you're already holding your breath, and just like that, your new life begins. The back stairs creak in a way you'll soon learn to measure by memory. Step 6 always groans if you tread too heavy, and step 12 wobbles just a hair to the left. You pause at the landing. The silence above feels like velvet pressed against your ears. Behind you, the basement ticked with work and whispers, but up here, everything waits. You nudge open the door that leads into the hallway of the morning room. The air is different, stale but sweet. A faint blend of rosewater, fireplace ash, and the odd sharpness of mothballs. The rug beneath your feet swallows sound completely. Thick, expensive wool, blue and gold weave. You've never walked on anything softer. There's a mirror in the hallway. You don't mean to, but you glance at yourself. The smudge on your collar stands out like a coal mark on white linen. You wipe it, but it only smears. No time. The bell rang. You've got a tray in hand. You knock once. Enter, comes a voice. Female. Cool. Drawn out like thread pulled slowly from silk. You open the door. The morning room is a sanctuary of dustless calm. Sunlight filters through gauzy curtains. A clock ticks gently. There are 3 dogs at her feet. Some breed with long ears and disapproving expressions. And there she sits, the lady of the house, wrapped in a peignoir, reading spectacles balanced just so, and not even glancing up as you cross the room. You set the silver tray down on the side table. Her letters, 4 of them, arranged in order of postmark as instructed. She nods slightly. You step back, still facing her, and bow your head before retreating. Not a word. Exchanged. That's considered a success. You shut the door quietly and lean against the wall outside, releasing the breath you didn't realize you were holding. She didn't yell. She didn't send the letters back. She didn't ask for the housekeeper. You survived. But then you hear a bell again. This time the tag reads study. Downstairs, you're told, he wants his shaving water. The other boy's busy. It's you again. You learn quickly. The upstairs doesn't run on logic, it runs on whims, and you're the vehicle for their frictionless fulfillment. You scurry back down, fill the basin, wrap the towel, and return. Again, the stairs, the hallway, the velvet quiet. This time, it's the master. He doesn't look up from his desk, but his eyes flick up when he sees you in the mirror above the fireplace. You bow slightly. He grunts. You set the bowl down and step back. He wears a dressing robe, dark green with thin piping. There's a scratch on his cheek you try not to stare at. An open letter lies on the desk, its wax seal broken red as blood. There's a smell in the room. Not cologne, not pipe smoke. Something saltier. A hint of gin from last night, maybe. Or something spilled. He looks up and says, "You're the new one." You nod. "Yes, sir." "What's your name?" You tell him. He nods once, then waves you off. But before you leave, he adds, "Be better than the last." You don't ask what happened to the last. That evening, when you finally reach the servants' hall, someone offers you tea in a cracked cup. The bread is stale but warm. You eat silently while the cook sharpens a knife and someone brushes lint off a waistcoat. You're too tired to speak. Your fingers smell like silver polish. Your knees ache, but you're still here. And as one of the girls yawns and leans her head against the wall, you hear her murmur, "Only 30 more years to go." She isn't joking. The trouble with being a servant in a Victorian home isn't just the work. It's when the work begins. You don't wake up. You are woken. A rap on the door, a voice. Scullery's waiting, and then footsteps retreating before you've even opened your eyes. There's no sun, no light, only cold, the kind that seeps through brick and bone. Your shared mattress feels like damp bread. You sit up, breath fogging in the air, and hear the distant roar of the kitchen range, already lit. The clock in the hallway reads 4:27. You dress in the dark. Stockings first, still damp from the wash. Shirt, apron, hair pinned quickly, poorly. You splash your face with water from a chipped basin and don't bother drying it. It'll freeze to your cheek soon enough. Someone sneezes in the next room, no one says bless you. You pass down the corridor, shoulders brushing the rough walls. The house above is silent. Not peaceful, just sleeping like a predator. All quiet teeth and stillness. You'd better keep it that way. In the scullery, the day begins with fire. You feed the range its coal offering, careful not to let the door clang shut. The last girl did that twice. She doesn't work here anymore. The room is already hot, sticky with steam from yesterday's linen soaking in tubs. Your hands find the blacking brush. Your first job? The grates. Victorian fireplaces aren't just for warmth. They're symbols of order and pride. Each one must be scrubbed, blackened and polished every single morning before the family wakes. No ash may remain, no smudge. You kneel, reach inside and begin. The soot coats your arms within minutes. You cough. You don't stop. By the time you're finished with the first grate, your hands are stiff, your apron's ruined, and you still have 2 more to go. You scrape the ash into a bucket, then carry it out to the ash pit in the yard. It's barely dawn. Frost bites the iron handle of the gate and your breath curls like smoke. In some homes, the ash is actually sold to soap makers or used to scrub stone floors. But here, it's dumped and forgotten. You watch it pour. Grey. Soft. Like dead snow. You return to the kitchen just in time to be handed a mop. Someone else has already spilled the milk for porridge. The cook is ranting about oats that haven't been delivered. Go fetch from the pantry, bottom shelf. Mind the mouse traps. And so you do. The pantry is dim and too quiet. Jars line the shelves like bottled ghosts. Pickled onions, brandied fruit, dried parsley. You reach for the oats and something skitters across your hand. Not a mouse. Worse. A cockroach the size of a shilling. You don't scream, though your lungs itch to. You just flick it off, grab the tin, and shut the door with your elbow. Welcome to breakfast prep. Eggs must be soft-boiled precisely 4 minutes. Bacon fried crisp, but never curled. Toast browned on one side only. And all of it served on warmed plates timed exactly 7 minutes after. The lady rings her bell. You've got your marching orders. But here's a fact you weren't told during hiring. The scullery maid is supposed to eat the burnt bits. She can't waste them, but she also can't be caught with jam on her lips. So she eats standing, alone, with the pantry door half closed, chewing quietly while scrubbing the next pot. You learn to move fast, silent and invisible. You learn to swallow hunger and tears with equal ease. The sun is finally up, but you barely notice. The kitchen is a flurry of clatter and snapping voices, and you've already been awake 4 hours. Your fingers sting from boiling water. Your wrists ache from hauling coal buckets. And still, there's more. Now comes the chamber pots. If you thought cleaning fireplaces was bad, try hauling 12 ceramic vessels brimming with the contents of the night before. Each one has a lid, yes, but lids shift, slosh, cough. 1 foot wrong, and your apron isn't just dirty, it's condemned. You carry 2 at a time, arms locked tight to avoid trembling. Down the hall, out the door, across the yard, to the outdoor sluice. The worst part? They're not even from the family's rooms. These are just the guest chambers. You haven't graduated to first floor waste yet. That honour belongs to the senior chambermaid. Some houses boasted water closets, early toilets flushed by levers and hidden tanks, but most still relied on old-fashioned commodes, emptied each morning before breakfast. And even in homes with plumbing, it was often considered too unreliable to trust without a servant checking it afterward. As you dump the first pot, you hear the familiar sound behind you. Another bell. You squint. Which one? Dining room. You hurry back, change aprons, wipe your hands. The bell always means now. The master wants his toast, not too brown, and the lady will require hot tea in her morning room. Last week's girl once poured it while the leaves were still steeping, made it too bitter. She cried when the lady called her a boiled cabbage with hands. You won't make that mistake. You fill the silver pot, strain the leaves, wipe the spout. The tray must sparkle, the doily scented. Then back up the servant stairs. 32 steps. You count everyone. By the time the family sits down, you've laid the cloth, lit the fire, and adjusted the drapes just so. Sunlight on the silver, not in their eyes. You stand just outside the door, perfectly still, waiting for a summons or a catastrophe. Both feel equally likely. A clang, a mutter. The master wants jam, blackcurrant, not strawberry. It's always been blackcurrant, you should have known. You curse yourself silently and dash back downstairs. The pantry is locked. You knock once. The housekeeper opens it a sliver. You explain, breathlessly. She says nothing, just hands you the jar with a look that freezes your spine. Next time, read the ledger, she says. Ah, yes, the ledger. A thick, cloth-bound book where everything's recorded, who eats what, when it runs low, who broke a teacup and when. Rumour says the housekeeper once caught a footman stealing Madeira by checking the ledger and noticing a missing bottle, then counted the corks. You make a note to study it tonight. You bring the jam. The master grunts. The lady doesn't look up. You retreat, unseen and unthanked. And now, only now, as the breakfast dishes are cleared, can you sneak into the scullery again, where your breakfast, now stone cold, waits under a napkin. Bread, butter, no jam for you. You eat in 3 bites, then you rise. There are 10 more hours in the day, and you haven't even started the laundry. But for now, as you scrape crust from a serving dish and listen to the muffled voices of the family laughing upstairs, one thought nestles in your mind like a dangerous spark. They have no idea you exist, and somehow, that's the point, there's no such thing as laundry day, because laundry is never done. The moment breakfast ends, you're handed a wicker basket nearly the size of your torso. It's brimming with soiled linen, stockings, nightshirts, crumpled lace collars, and at least one corset with an unmistakable lipstick stain on the ribbon. You say nothing. You're not paid to notice. You lug it toward the laundry room, which isn't a room so much as a damp, stone-floored annex beside the scullery. The air is heavy with steam and something sour, old soap and older cloth. Rain patters softly on the small clouded window overhead. It might be spring, it might be Tuesday. But time doesn't matter down here. What matters is sorting. You separate linens from wool, silks from underthings. You shake out each piece, careful to avoid the occasional mouse or stray hairpin. And then comes the lie. Victorian soap isn't the cheerful, floral-scented bar you might picture. It's harsh, it stings, it bites under your nails. Many servants made their own, boiled beef fat mixed with wood ash or soda crystals. One girl whispered she once burned the skin clean off her knuckles trying to impress the cook with extra whiteness. You pull on cracked gloves, dip your hands into the wash basin, and start the scrub. Shirt after shirt, cuff after cuff. You beat them with a dolly stick, drag them across the ribbed washboard, then rinse and wring until your arms shake. Corsets are the worst, not because they're delicate, but because they're dangerous. The whalebone bends bite your wrists as you scrub. You once heard of a scullery girl who sliced her palm open on a broken corset hook and nearly lost her hand. You never saw her again. Some of the older maids joke that if you survive your first year in laundry, you'll outlive the family upstairs. You don't know if that's hope or a warning. The steam thickens. You're sweating now, though the room is cold. You twist a chemise and water pours out like tea from a spout. You pause, listen. The house above is distant, muted, but not still. A bell rings. Of course it does. You hang the dripping pieces on the rack and dash back through the kitchen, dodging the cook who's muttering about meringues. Up the stairs again, breath held, apron askew. It's the mistress. Her voice floats from the dressing room. There's a mark on the hem. She holds up a muslin gown, eyes narrowed. You glance and immediately spot it. Mud, maybe. From the garden path. Or, was that one from the morning wash? It can't be. She doesn't wait for your explanation. This must be redone. Tomorrow. Early. You nod. Apologise. She doesn't look at you again. The dress is now your burden. Back downstairs, you drop it into the delicates basin and sigh. You'll be up before dawn tomorrow to hand wash it in boiled lavender water and dry it flat on a muslin sheet so it doesn't stretch. But you can't worry about that now, because it's time to iron. You might think ironing is the easy part, a chance to stand still, maybe even warm your hands near the stove. But that's only because you've never faced a Victorian flat iron. There's no plug, no dial, no steam button, just a block of solid iron, heated directly on the stove until it's hot enough to sizzle spit, and no built-in way to know when it's too hot or too cold. You sprinkle a little water on it. If it dances and vanishes in a hiss, it's probably ready. Probably. With a thick pad beneath and a linen cloth above, you press it down on the first petticoat. Smooth, slow strokes. No stopping. No double lines. The iron must glide like a skater on ice. Hesitate for a second and you'll leave a scorch mark. And a scorch mark, as you've heard many times, is a dismissal wrapped in cotton. You swap irons often. While one cools, another heats. There are at least 4 rotating near the stove. You grip them by thick wooden handles wrapped in cloth, your knuckles whitening from the weight. Now comes the lace. Lace can't be ironed the normal way. You use a porcelain bottle filled with hot water and gently roll it over the fabric, coaxing out wrinkles without flattening the design. Some houses even require lace collars to be pinned to a wooden frame and left to dry naturally. No heat, no light, no creases. You learned that lesson the hard way. Last week, a visiting niece arrived wearing a collar so fine it looked like spider silk. You'd never seen anything like it. You touched it just once with the tip of a barely warm iron. It left a faint yellow sheen, the kind only a trained eye would notice. The niece noticed. You spent the next day in the cellar scrubbing boots and chamber pots, while the housekeeper decided whether you were salvageable. Today, you're being watched again. The housekeeper walks by the laundry room, arms crossed, ledger in hand. She says nothing, just glances at the ironing pile, then at you. You nod, respectful. Keep ironing. By mid-afternoon, your shoulders feel detached. Your hands sting with tiny burns, and the air smells of hot metal, damp linen, and the faint sourness of old starch. Someone opens the door behind you. It's one of the parlour maids, pale and jittery. She whispers, "The mistress spilled liver sauce on the dining cloth. You need to..." You know. You sigh. Liver sauce is notoriously oily. You place the flat iron back on the stove, bundle the tablecloth into your arms, and head to the scullery. There's a trick for this. You soak the stain with soda water, let it rest. Then gently press it between 2 white cloths and iron it on low, praying the heat pulls the grease upward into the rags. It works, sometimes. But as you work, a memory floats back. The cook once told you a bizarre tip she picked up from a previous house. Crush chalk and rub it into the stain. Leave it overnight. Draws out the grease better than vinegar. You glance at the shelf above. There, a stub of blackboard chalk. You crush it in your palm and sprinkle it across the spot like a ritual. Maybe tomorrow it'll be gone. Maybe tomorrow you'll still be here. The The sun dips low behind the frosted glass. You shake out the final linen, fold it precisely and place it atop the stack. And for a brief second, with the warmth of the iron still in your palms, you feel useful, not seen, not thanked, but useful. You first hear it as a faint clatter, like a coin tossed onto wood. Then the unmistakable ping as a bell jiggles on its wire above the kitchen door. You look up. The tag swings gently. Green drawing room. Your breath catches. The bell system is the pulse of the entire house. Each room above is wired to the servants' corridor below, its own little brass lever hidden discreetly by the doorframe or beside the fireplace. When pulled, the motion triggers a mechanical jiggle on a board mounted above the pantry. Each label is handwritten in black ink. Dining room, master bedroom, morning parlour, and now green drawing room. One bell, one message. Drop everything. Move. The entire rhythm of the household warps around that single sound. You glance around. The footman is carrying a tureen of soup. The kitchen maid is peeling parsnips. The cook waves you off, lips pursed. Go then, quickly. You wipe your hands on your apron and reach for the tray, just in case. Silver polished, edges straight. A cloth, a candle, a decanter of sherry. You don't know what's needed yet, but you will when you arrive. The back stairs are cooler than the kitchen, lined with green-painted panelling and a faint whiff of varnish. You move lightly, nearly on tiptoe. Noise is your enemy now. Upstairs is a world of illusion. Nothing must hint at the effort churning beneath it. You open the door to the green drawing room and step inside. Lady Ashford sits stiffly on a tufted chair, ankles crossed, surrounded by needlepoint pillows and the faint scent of heliotrope. She does not look up. Her hands are folded tightly over a closed fan. She gestures with 2 fingers to the fire. It's gone out. You set down the tray and kneel. Of course it has. The coal hasn't been turned since breakfast. You grab the poker from its stand and carefully lift the iron grate. The ashes crumble in flakes like scorched paper. You blow gently, coaxing a red spark back to life, then feed it a few lumps from the scuttle beside you. Behind you, the lady murmurs, almost as if to herself, "You're the new one." You nod without turning. "Yes, ma'am." "Don't scrape the grate, I can't bear that sound." You slow your hand instantly, angling the poker so it touches only ash. Victorian fires aren't just for heat. They're performance pieces, a sign of taste, of prosperity. They must burn brightly but never smell of smoke, crackle but not too loudly. And you're the invisible firekeeper. The flame flutters to life, warm, golden, perfect. You rise, bow your head slightly and back toward the door. She doesn't thank you, that's not the custom. But her eyes don't follow you, and that's a compliment in itself. You slip out the door, close it quietly and descend the back stairs again. Faster now. Another bell has rung. This time, master's study. You barely have time to catch your breath before you're climbing again. Tray balanced, shoes. Hushed against the stair treads you now know by muscle memory. The tag said, master's study. That usually means one of 3 things. Port, a letter sent, or someone in trouble. You hope it's port. At the door, you pause, knock once. You hear a muffled, yes. Inside, the master sits behind a hulking mahogany desk half swallowed in tobacco haze. The curtains are drawn despite the daylight. A single lamp flickers beside his inkstand, casting long shadows on the spines of leather-bound volumes. He gestures to the tray. Set it there, and find the paper knife. You spot it immediately, slipped beneath a stack of correspondence. Ivory handle, dull blade. You retrieve it and offer it handle first. He accepts it, without thanks. Just mutters, "Where's Haynes, the butler?" You have no idea. "Sir, I believe he's below, you answer softly. He grunts. Too much Madeira last night, no doubt. He slides open a letter with a paper knife, frowning at the contents. Then, almost offhandedly, he says, "Fetch the ledger, the one for household accounts." You blink. That's not your task. That's the housekeeper's realm. But you nod, retreating without a sound, and head toward the housekeeper's office, a narrow chamber tucked between the pantry and a service hallway. Mrs. Penworthy is there, spectacles perched at the edge of her nose, already writing in the very book you've come to retrieve. She doesn't look up. "Waiting for it, is he?" You nod. She sighs, lifts the ledger slowly and dusts the cover with a handkerchief before passing it over. He'll be looking for the linen order. Tell him it was adjusted. She changed her mind about the hem-stitching again. You nod, though you don't understand half of it. Back in the study, you hand it over. He flips through pages filled with inked numbers and tiny notes, orders for lamp oil, tally marks beside cuts of meat, strange abbreviations for candle counts and starch deliveries. He pauses, squinting. "What's this expense for parlour replacement silk?" You freeze. No idea. "Fetch Penworthy." You're dismissed again. As you retreat, a faint smile curls at the edge of your thoughts. Not joy, but recognition. You're starting to see how the house works. The bells are just the tip of it. The real power lives in the ledger. It's the script for this performance. And the more you observe, the more clearly you see who edits the play behind the curtain. You return the tray to the kitchen. The tea's gone cold. Someone's burned the roast. The cook is shouting again. It's 3:17 p.m. A visiting guest has just arrived, and the front hall is filled with voices. The family bell rings again. 3 quick pings. Guest bedroom. The maid who's meant to answer is crying in the scullery. No one speaks to her. You're told the mistress called her a little burden with pudding fingers, and she hasn't said a word since. You go in her place. Fresh water, a flower in a vase, matches laid beside the hearth. As you straighten the coverlet, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror again. Same face, but something has changed. You've begun to move like one of them, silently, strategically, like a ghost in your own life. And that, here, is survival. Down you go again. Back past the whispering corridor, past the scullery girl still curled beside the stove, and into the very belly of the house, the basement kitchen. It isn't the warm, inviting hearth you might picture from a storybook. This is a battlefield, and right now it smells like blood, onions, and overcooked veal. The range is roaring, iron hot, every burner lit. A pan of suet hisses angrily in the corner. The cook, Mrs. Dobbin, is bellowing like a sergeant with gout. You call that a proper chop? This is a dining table, not a sheepdog kennel. A younger kitchen maid trembles as she retrims the cutlets. You step around them carefully, narrowly avoiding a basin of marrow bones meant for stock. The floor is slick from someone knocking over the barley water an hour ago. You keep your balance. Barely. This is your real education. Forget the upstairs drawing rooms. Down here, etiquette means staying out of Mrs. Dobbin's knife arc and knowing when to shut the larder door without slamming it. You're handed a bowl of potatoes. No words, just eyes that say, "Peel fast and don't complain." You begin. The peeler is dull. The potatoes have sprouted tiny pink eyes that stare back at you in quiet resentment. Your hands work quickly, efficiently, one after the next into the water. You find your rhythm until you flinch. A cleaver lands 2 inches from your elbow with a meaty thunk. Mrs. Dobbin's slicing through a joint with grim determination, muttering about overcooked game birds and guests who couldn't tell a grouse from a herring. No one answers her. They know better. You glance at the preparation table. Ducks are being trussed. Pudding stirred. A fish with a face like a frown lies in wait for butter and parsley. Everything is planned down to the second. The courses must follow a strict choreography. Soup, fish, meat, game, sweets, nuts, and fruit. And then, after all that, cheese. All of it begins here, where sweat glistens on foreheads and sauces curdle when the door opens too often. But here's something no one tells you about the Victorian kitchen. It's not just about heat and timing. It's also about hierarchy. There's a silent ladder, cook at the top, scullery at the bottom. Footmen float in and out like privileged diplomats. But the kitchen staff? They must dance in place. Never sit, never pause, never speak unless spoken to. You watch a moment of silent rebellion. One of the older assistants, Thomas, the one with the chipped tooth and always a joke, slips a sliver of roast between his fingers. He lifts it to his mouth. The housekeeper would dock his wages. The cook would scream, but he pops it in anyway. He catches your eye and winks. Some crimes are worth it. And then the rhythm picks up again. The bell is rung for the first course. Plates are plated, trays are loaded. The footman arrives, gloves immaculate, and sweeps in like a prince among peasants. "Ready?" he says coolly. Mrs. Dobbin snorts. "Ready yesterday." He lifts the tray, turns, leaves, and just like that, the show begins. Upstairs, candles flicker, china glimmers, conversation rises. Down here, you grab another potato, because course 2 is coming soon. The second course isn't just food, it's strategy. You're not just peeling vegetables anymore. You're dodging elbows, ducking under trays, and learning how to make yourself smaller than the steam curling off the pudding basin. The kitchen is alive, feral, a giant metal mouth chewing through butter, meat, and nerves. "Boil's too low," the assistant shouts from the range. "Your face is too low," barks Mrs. Dobbin, not even looking up as she fillets a fish with surgical vengeance. She's testing sauces now, dipping a scorched spoon into a row of copper pans. Onion, thyme, lemon. One is too sharp. She curses, adds wine, tastes again, nods. All is forgiven. You carry a tray of empty tureens to the scullery, but halfway there you hear something behind you, a whimper. It's the kitchen maid again. Maggie. She sliced her finger while paring turnips, and is trying not to cry on the floor beside the icebox. You pass her a scrap of linen. She presses it to her hand and whispers, "That's the second one today." You nod but keep moving. No one bleeds for long in this house. You either wrap it or you go. The third course is already being plated. Roasted duck in currant sauce, on china so fine it might break under the weight of the spoon. One of the footmen returns, face red. Guest complained about the consommé, said it was tepid. Mrs. Dobbin slams the ladle down. "Tell him to drink faster." She mutters something about weak palates and stronger poisons, then nods at you. You bring up the replacement. Plate 3. You freeze. This is new. You're trusted to carry something upstairs. The plate trembles in your hands as you arrange it just so. A fan of duck breast thin sliced. A spoonful of sauce. Not too much. A sprig of parsley placed by Mrs. Dobbin herself, like a general pinning a medal before battle. You carry it up the servant stairs. Each step feels like a test. One slip, one stumble. The smell of roasted meat and warm fat floats upward, intoxicating, and you realize you haven't eaten since dawn. But you don't let your grip falter. You reach the dining room door. A footman opens it a crack, takes the tray without a word and shuts it again. That's your reward. You return downstairs to a different battlefield, the aftermath. The pots are towering. The pudding basin looks like it exploded. The gravy boat has a crack down the side and the scent of clove and regret. You're handed a rag and pointed toward the spill by the dumbwaiter. "Mind the grease," someone says. You scrub and scrub and scrub. You scrape burned batter from a copper pan while Mrs. Dobbin laughs heartily at something the scullery boy said about a pineapple gone soft. Someone makes a joke about serving eels in custard. They wouldn't know the difference upstairs. You manage a chuckle, barely. As the evening winds down, the last course is cleared. But the kitchen doesn't sleep. There's still washing, still linens to sort, still the fire to bank, still a pan of lamb fat to render for tallow. But you, just for a moment, you lean against the stone wall, eyes closed, as the heat of the range kisses your cheek. And in that half-second of quiet, with your apron soaked and your fingers shriveled, you realise something. The kitchen might be hell, but it's also home. The dining room is hushed now, syruped in candlelight and clinking glass. You're not in it, of course, but you know the sound. You've learned the rhythm of silverware, the hush of serviette against chin, the pregnant pause before someone asks for more port. You stand just outside the door, pressed against the panel, holding your breath. When the bell rings, 3 short pings, it means clear the first course. That's your cue. You and another maid slip in through the servant door like phantoms, eyes lowered, posture perfect. You do not speak. The table is an absurd vision. Duck bones glistening on porcelain, fish heads propped like relics, half-eaten rolls resting on embroidered napkins. You scoop up plates silently, trying not to gag at the mix of clove sauce, liver paste and half-melted aspic. The gentlemen don't notice you. They're laughing now, red in the face. The ladies are quieter, eyes darting to each other when someone mentions the stock market or the colonies. One guesses something about the recent uprising in India. Another jokes that tea might go up in price. You keep your hand steady as you lift another tray. Back through the side door, down the stairs, into the corridor, and immediately into the scullery, where dishes clang and steam clouds your sight. Here's something no one tells you. Servants don't clean silver with polish. Not at first. You take the forks, still slick with pheasant grease, and begin rubbing them down with balls of stale bread. It absorbs the oil better than cloth, and bread is cheap. The crusts come from the ends of loaves not fit for the family. What doesn't clean forks is later dried and fed to ducks. Nothing is wasted, not even crumbs. As you work, the door creaks. Mr. Haynes, the butler, walks in. He's immaculate, tailcoat flawless. White gloves somehow still white, his voice low and clipped. They've requested devilled kidneys, midnight snack. Lady Ashford has a headache. You nod, already turning toward the larder. In the Victorian world, dining isn't just a meal. It's theatre. It's proof of wealth, of refinement, of dominance. Every course, every drink pairing, every ridiculous decorative garnish is a social manoeuvre. You slice into a jar of preserved kidneys, one of the more vulgar delicacies, truth be told, and prepare them with mustard, cayenne, and just a hint of anchovy paste. The smell is revolting, but the upper crust adores it. The dish must be served hot, sizzling, so once again you load the tray, back up the stairs, through the hush. The drawing-room door creaks. Lady Ashford sits alone, her hair down. Her feet rest on an ottoman. She does not look well. She doesn't thank you. You set the tray on the side table, adjust the linen napkin, and bow. As you turn to leave, she speaks. "Too much port," she mutters. You pause. "I'll bring ginger water, ma'am." She nods faintly. "And some ice, if there's any left." You retreat. Downstairs again. You cross to the icebox, massive, oak-framed, chilled by a block hauled in from the canal just that morning. Ice is precious. It melts fast. But tonight, there's just enough. You chisel off 2 small chips and wrap them in linen. This time, when you return and hand them to her, she looks at you for the first time, not warmly, not cruelly, just tired. She says, "Leave the lamp. The dark makes it worse." You nod. Step back. Close the door gently. The corridor swallows you once more, and as you descend into the heat of the kitchen again, you wonder, who's really in charge in this house? The dining room performance may be over, but your shift is far from finished. The aftermath begins with silver. Each fork, spoon, and butter knife must be cleaned, inspected, polished, and returned to its precise slot in the sideboard drawers. The butler oversees it all, Mr. Haynes leaning in silently now and then, his breath faintly smelling of sherry, his gloved finger tracing along the edge of a spoon as if testing for invisible flaws. He's not the shouting type. Worse, he's the disappointed silence type. When he finds a streak, he simply looks at you. Just looks. And somehow that burns longer than words. The silver cloths are already damp from use, the candles dripping their last wax onto the edges of the work table. You rub each piece in small circles, hand aching, fingers cramping. One by one the knives gleam again, like nothing ever touched them, except your hands. The trickiest items are the fish servers, with their ornate piercings and delicate inlays. And heaven help you if one of the pastry forks has gone missing. That happened once last winter. The result? Every servant locked inside for 2 days, searching every drawer, linen basket and chamber pot until it was found, wedged behind a coal scuttle, rusted with neglect. They docked the maid's pay anyway. As you place the last spoon into its velvet-lined tray, you glance up at the servant's bellboard. Still. Blessedly still, but you know better than to trust it. So you check the ledgers. Each evening before the household retires, the housekeeper walks the house with a notebook, logging which candles have burned low, which linens are marked for bleaching, which pantry jars need replenishing. She records the precise weight of soap left in the scullery, the number of starch packets used, the status of the upstairs decanters. And you're expected to read it, to learn from it, to obey it like scripture. You spot a note scribbled in her cursive. Kitchen maid broke china serving bowl. Order replacement before Sunday. Reassigned to hall cleaning duty. You wince. That's Maggie. You glance across the kitchen. She's scrubbing the flagstones on her knees, her bandaged hand trembling from the cold water. She doesn't look up. A clink. The footman returns with the final glasses from the drawing room, cut crystal rims still ringed with wine. One glass is cracked. He shrugs. Don't tell Haynes. You nod, take it gently and set it aside. Later to be reported, of course. You're not risking your neck for a footman with slicked hair and a smug smile. The breadboard gets scrubbed, the cheese knives dried, the candlesticks wiped of the wax, the tablecloths whisked away for soaking. Even the hearth in the dining room will be swept, though it wasn't lit tonight. It might have been, and that's reason enough. At last, the kitchen clock strikes 11. The cook has retired, the fire is banked, and Mr. Haynes, eyes sharp despite the hour, declares the hall ready to be locked. Backstairs now, he says. You nod, strip off your apron, and follow the quiet exodus of servants up the servant staircase, one by one, in single file, like ghosts returning to their crypt. You reach your attic room, bare wood, iron bedstead, scratchy blanket, and collapse without removing your boots. Outside, the city hums faintly. Inside, the bellboard waits, because morning always rings again. The call comes just after dawn. You're barely awake, rubbing sleep grit from your eyes, when the housekeeper raps on the dormitory door. 3 knocks, not urgent, but firm. Lady Ashford requests assistance in her dressing room. You sit up slowly. The air bites your skin. No fire lit upstairs yet. Your limbs are sore from yesterday's scrubbing. Your fingers still hold the phantom ache of lifting trays and polishing silver. But you rise anyway. You always rise. In houses like this, dressing the lady is a ritual, not a chore, You wash your face with a cloth dipped in a cold basin, pin your hair, straighten your bodice, and make your way up the back stair. You know how this goes. You've heard the other girls talk. She wants a maid with quiet fingers and a steady gaze. One who doesn't chatter. One who doesn't flinch. You knock gently. Come. Her dressing room is soft lit by the morning sun, filtered through gauze curtains. The scent is familiar. Lavender water, starch, and faint perfume. Lady Ashford sits at her vanity in a quilted robe, staring into the mirror. Not at you, not at anything, really. Her voice is clipped but tired. Lay out the blue walking dress, the one with the buttons, and bring the hairbrush. You know the one. You cross the room to the wardrobe, open the heavy panelled doors, and reveal a forest of garments. Linen, silk, damask, satin, each labelled by season, occasion, and formality. You find the blue dress, careful not to touch the lace too much, and lay it across the chaise. Then the brushes, boar bristle, tortoiseshell handle, a matching comb. She doesn't speak again as you move behind her. You begin brushing, long, even strokes from crown to shoulder, never tugging. Her hair is finer than you expected, greying, but still thick. You catch a glimpse of her eyes in the mirror. She doesn't blink, but she sees you. As you part her hair, you notice something. A faint scar along her temple, nearly hidden beneath the roots. Old, faint. You don't ask. Of course you don't. Instead, you say softly, "Would you like it pinned up or braided today, ma'am?" She exhales slowly. Braided. It's a rare answer. You begin the plait gently, the strands warm beneath your fingers. You remember the scullery girl saying once, "Their heads are heavier than ours, from all the hairpins." You'd laughed then. You're not laughing now. When the braid is done, she lifts her hand to touch it. "It's neat," she says, her tone unreadable. You nod once and wait. She rises slowly, stepping behind the dressing screen. You help with the corset laces, careful not to breathe too loudly. She winces as you tighten it. "Too much pudding last night," she murmurs. "Don't say a word." You wouldn't dream of it. The dress goes on next. Blue wool, fitted bodice, mother-of-pearl buttons. You help her step into it, guiding each sleeve, adjusting the shoulders, smoothing the hem. At last, she's dressed. But she doesn't move. She lingers before the mirror, staring, not at her reflection, but perhaps beyond it. "Have you ever worn a gown like this?" she asks suddenly. You freeze. "No, ma'am." "Don't," she says. "It pinches, and it makes people think you're fine when you aren't." Then she lifts her chin. "Fetch my gloves." You do, and the spell is broken. You return with her gloves, soft kid leather, pearl buttons at the wrist, still smelling faintly of rose oil and storage sachets. She doesn't look at you as she slips her hands into them, fingers stiff from age or pride. You offer the final button hook, and she accepts it without a word. You know now to leave the room only after she lifts her chin. It happens a beat later. "Tell Mr. Haynes I'll be out for the morning promenade, and fetch my parasol. The ivory one, not the black. I'm not in mourning." You nod. By the time you return from the umbrella stand, she's gone. Only a faint indent in the cushion, and the lingering trace of her perfume remain. But your day is not done. You're intercepted in the corridor by the housekeeper, who hands you a folded note. The seal is unbroken, but the envelope is damp. "Deliver this to the footman in the entryway, discreetly." You do, and in return the footman, cheeky, powdered, and too proud of his collar, leans in and says, "She's visiting her sister again. Think it's about that doctor in Mayfair. Poor man." You don't reply. Downstairs, Maggie's dusting the library again. Her bandaged hand trembles, but she doesn't complain. She hums faintly, the way she always does when her thoughts drift too far from the moment. You pass the drawing room and spot a tear in the curtain fringe. It shouldn't bother you, but it does. You note it quietly and report it to the housekeeper, who jots it down in the ledger with a nod. "You're observant," she says, not looking up. You beam inside, though your face stays neutral. That evening, as you help remove Lady Ashford's gloves and unfasten the gown, her voice softens. "My sister says I look tired," she murmurs. You don't respond. There's no safe answer. But after a pause, she adds, "You do good work." Then she blinks, as if surprised she said it at all. You hang the gown with careful fingers, fold the gloves, brush out her hair, turn the covers just as she likes, creased back only on the left side. As you reach for the lamp, she says, "You remind me of someone I once knew, before I married. She was always watching, like you, always listening." You pause. She closes her eyes. That's not a complaint. You lower the lamp's wick. The room darkens into soft shadows. Downstairs again, the other maids are already cleaning the evening dishes, bickering over who forgot to stoke the laundry fire. You rejoin them silently, the warmth of that half-compliment still tucked between your ribs like a hidden note. Later, you catch Maggie, alone, folding linen napkins with her good hand. "Do they ever see us?" she asks suddenly. You look at her. "Not fully," you say. She nods, not disappointed, just confirming something she's long suspected. Then she smiles faintly and says, "That's why I hum. If they don't see me, they might at least hear me." You return to your folding. You don't hum. But tonight, for the first time, you consider it. You've memorized the rhythm by now. Step 1, don't be seen. Step 2, don't be heard. Step 3, always know who might be watching, which is why you've learned to use the forbidden staircases. They're not actually forbidden, just invisible by design. Narrower than the family's grand marble flights, these back staircases coil behind walls like veins through a body. Bare wood, no runner. The kind of stairs where a single creak in the wrong moment might cost you your position. You take them now, balancing a stack of folded napkins, navigating the dark turns by instinct. You've counted them 100 times. 26 steps from the scullery to the linen cupboard. 42 from the butler's pantry to the nursery landing. Every house has its hidden routes. Servant passageways, they're called. Entire hallways behind panelling. Invisible doors tucked in alcoves. Even little sliding shutters in the walls through which trays can be passed unseen. Some call it clever architecture. You call it claustrophobia with hinges. This morning you're sent to the upstairs drawing room with a folded carpet runner. You take the servant stair naturally, but as you reach the second floor, a sound stops you, a sudden click of a door ahead. You freeze, back pressed to the wall. Footsteps, not fast, not loud, but deliberate. A gentleman's steps. You hold your breath. The passage you're in has no windows, just a single sconce flickering low. If he turns this way, the footsteps pass. A door clicks shut again. You exhale, slow. That was Mr. William, the eldest son. Returned from university, pale, stiff, proud, and by rumour, fond of disappearing into the study with unpaid bills and too much brandy. You wait 10 full seconds, then continue. Once in the drawing room, you spread the runner and realign the rug fringe. Your hands move with precision now, not thought. You no longer question the need to straighten furniture that hasn't been touched. You just do. There's a secret to surviving in this house. Know which footsteps to fear. Heavy ones mean a footman. Sharp ones, heels, mean the housekeeper. Barely there swishes, Lady Ashford. But the worst? The sudden silence that means someone's already there, waiting. You learn to cough gently before turning a corner. You pretend to straighten a flower arrangement just to delay entering a room. One mistake, and you might find yourself face to face with a guest in their dressing robe. who then claims you invaded their privacy. Dismissal, no reference. It's happened before. Backstairs rules are never written down, but you know them all now. Don't stand in front of the window. Don't pass the family in a hallway. Don't speak unless addressed. Don't eat where you might be seen. Don't ask why someone isn't there anymore. That last one, that's the hardest. Because today you realise something. The parlour maid, Elsie, the one who used to whistle while polishing, candlesticks, she's gone. No explanation, no whisper, just an empty spot at the table during supper, a vacant hook where her apron used to hang. You ask Maggie softly, did she leave? Maggie shrugs. Guess so, but she won't meet your eyes. You return to the corridor, pick up your tray, step lightly, and when you hear a distant creak above, your head snaps upward. Because you've just remembered, Elsie was always the one who cleaned the study after midnight, and now that task might fall to you. The study at night is a different beast. By day, it's a place of stiff chairs and cigar smoke, where the master grunts over ledgers and guests sip brandy while pretending not to snooze. But after dark, when the fire dims and the halls fall still, it becomes heavier, as if the velvet curtains have soaked up too many secrets. And tonight, you've been told to clean it. Elsie's job, now yours. You step in, tray in hand, duster, polishing cloth, small broom for the fireplace ash. The desk is still open, an ink blot dried in mid-drip. A letter lies half-folded beneath a paperweight shaped like a lion. You don't read it. You wouldn't dare. But your eyes can't help noticing the name on the envelope. Miss E. Merton. Elsie's surname. Your hands stiffen. The air feels colder. You dust quickly, mechanically. The bookshelves are tall, the bindings leathery and cracked. Some of the titles you can't pronounce. One is missing its cover, tucked behind a taxidermy owl. You lift the bell jar to polish the base and notice a strand of hair stuck beneath the glass. Blonde. Too light to be yours. You set it back. You're not here to discover, just to erase. The hearth has old coals still warm at the bottom. You sweep them carefully, then stir the fire gently with the poker to see if it needs relighting. That's when you hear it. A whisper. Not words. Just the sound of two voices, soft, rapid, behind the wall. The servant corridor. You move to the panel near the bookshelf and press your ear against the seam. Nothing now, but the air on the other side is moving, breathing. You back away slowly. Someone is there. Someone knows you heard. You finish tidying in half the time it should take. The polish on the drawer handles is uneven, but you can't bring yourself to stay longer. You bow to the empty room as if excusing yourself from an audience, then close the door with both hands and twist the handle softly shut. Back in the servants' hall, no one looks up when you return. They're finishing supper, bread heels, cold tea, and silence. You sit. Across from you, Maggie mouths the word, study. You nod. She raises her brows, then says nothing more. But later, as you hang up your apron, you find something odd in your pocket. Not yours. Folded linen, no embroidery. Tucked inside, a note. Scrawled in pencil, smudged with coal dust, it reads, "Watch the butler's key ring. Not all doors are locked for you." No signature, no name, just that. You fold it quickly, slide it beneath your mattress, and as you lie in the dark staring at the slanted ceiling of the attic room, the creaks and groans of the old house seem louder than usual. Because now you know what no servant is meant to know. The house listens, and sometimes it speaks back. The scullery is hotter than ever this morning, and not just from steam. Whispers boil faster than the dishwater. Something's changed. You can feel it. Someone mutters about a missing bottle of Madeira. Someone else swears they saw the housekeeper check the ledger twice last night. Even the cook is quieter today, chopping celery with far too much precision. But it's not the wine or the books that have everyone wide-eyed and speaking in half sentences. It's Elsie, or more precisely, where Elsie might have gone. You don't join the talk. You just keep scrubbing, listening, hands in greasy water, ears in 10 directions. A new girl has arrived. Slim, pale, barely 16. She's already on her knees polishing boot buckles with chalk paste. Someone says she came from a house near Chelsea, was dismissed for untidy behaviour. Another says she ran. Another says the master had been visiting the Chelsea house more often than necessary. You don't ask, you just make a note of her eyes. Too wide, too quiet. Later that morning, you pass by the wine cellar on your way to the pantry. The butler is there. Mr. Haynes stands with the door open, inspecting the shelves, his keyring dangling heavily from his belt. He counts the bottles aloud, brows furrowed. There's a red smear on the cuff of his shirt. Burgundy, maybe, or something else. You wait, tray in hand. He glances at you once and says only, "Fetch the cook." You nod, but as you turn, your eyes flick to the far shelf behind him. One bottle is missing from the labelled row. In its place, something has been stuffed into the empty space. A small handkerchief, crumpled, pale pink, embroidered with a single letter, E. You say nothing. You walk away. Back in the scullery, Maggie leans in, voice hushed. "You saw something, didn't you?" You shake your head. She sighs. "They always think we don't notice." You glance around. The kitchen boy has burn marks on his wrists. The new girl from Chelsea won't speak above a whisper, and the cook has started locking the larder at night, even though no one would dare steal, not after last year. In the servants' hall that evening, the girls are gossiping again. But it's not about the master or the lady this time. It's about the wine cellar. They say it's colder than it should be. That the last scullery maid who got too curious came back shivering and silent. That sometimes you can hear footsteps there after the lanterns are out. You don't believe in ghosts, but you do believe in locked doors and missing keys and notes left in pockets, and you start to wonder, what if this house keeps its secrets not just behind its walls, but inside them? That night, as you fold linens in the stillness of the laundry room, you find another clue. Not hidden, just forgotten. A scrap of ribbon, tucked behind the soap blocks. Pale blue, torn at one end. You recognise it. Elsie wore it in her hair every day. You hold it for a moment, then slide it into your apron pocket. Not out of fear, out of loyalty. Whatever happened in this house, someone should remember, even if no one else dares to say her name. Later that night, you find yourself scrubbing pans alone, long after the others have gone to fold napkins or count spoons. The scullery is dim, the fire banked, the echoes louder. You're elbow deep in a stew pot when you hear it. Soft voices through the vent. Not in the kitchen, beneath it. There's a crawl space below the scullery. You've never been allowed in, not officially. You asked once, months ago, and the cook barked, "That's where the rats go to die. Don't even look at the hatch." You look now. There's a loose tile by the coal scuttle. You've noticed it before. Nothing strange, just loose. But tonight, it seems more deliberate. The voices below grow sharper. You can't make out the words, just the tones. Hushed, hasty, tense. You kneel. Shift the tile with a soft scrape. Cold air rushes up from the dark. A stone tunnel, barely wide enough to crawl through, disappears into blackness. A row of dust-coated wine bottles lines the opening like teeth in a crooked grin, and there, just inside, you see it. A smudge of pale blue. The ribbon. It's tied to a rusty nail. Deliberate. You don't move, because footsteps approach. You replace the tile, wipe your hands, pick up a pan, scrub like you've been there the whole time. Mr. Haynes enters. He doesn't speak at first, just watches you with his usual unreadable calm. His gloves are off, tucked into one hand, The other rests on his keyring, thumb tracing a long iron shaft. "You've been thorough," he says at last. You nod. "Yes, sir. I expect no less." He glances at the hearth where the last of the embers glow like watchful eyes. Then, "Don't stay up too late. You'll need your strength tomorrow. Important guests." He leaves. You count 5 full minutes before you breathe again. At breakfast, the tension lingers like grease on silver. The cook snaps more than usual. Maggie breaks a plate. No one jokes. And in the hallway near the laundry, someone's erased Elsie's name from the duty rota. Just rubbed it clean away. You check your pocket. The blue ribbon is still there, folded like a secret. Later, as you sweep the front hall, a job they rarely trust to you, you catch sight of the master speaking with a man in a long grey coat. Not a guest, not a friend. He holds a notebook, wears gloves indoors. His eyes flicker, sharp, scanning. As they speak, the master says something that makes the man pause. You catch a phrase. "Servants disappear all the time." The man doesn't agree. His brow furrows. You lower your gaze, keep sweeping. That night in the servants' hall, Maggie whispers, "Did you see the inspector?" You nod. She leans in. Maybe now they'll look. Maybe they'll ask. You're not so sure, because in houses like this, questions are dangerous. Answers even more so. You lie in your cot later, ribbon still beneath your pillow, and listen to the creaks in the walls, the ones you now realise were never the wind. And as you drift off to sleep, one final thought settles in your chest. In this house, silence isn't just survival. It's enforced. Time in this house doesn't pass. It loops. By now you've begun to notice it. The quiet patterns, the invisible gears that keep this grand machine whirring without ever changing. At first, the days felt like chaos. Bells, clatter, fires, spilled wine, and shouted orders. But now, you see it. Mrs. Ashford always asks for lavender water on Mondays. Mr. Haynes walks the wine cellar every third evening, always at dusk. Maggie hums the same tune when folding dinner napkins, soft, high, a little off-key. And upstairs, the mistress has stopped wearing her blue gown. She says nothing about it, but it hangs untouched in the wardrobe now, the one you ironed so carefully just a week ago. In its place, darker colours, greys, navy, dusty lilac. You were never told why. But that's how it works here. Things happen. No explanations, no announcements, only patterns. And you're getting very good at reading them. Take breakfast, for instance. Every morning you hear the same argument between the younger Ashford boy and his father, muffled through floorboards. One wants to join the Navy. The other insists he finish at Oxford first. Afterward the study bell always rings, sharp, impatient. You bring tea, strong, no sugar, you always did. But this morning something is different. As you pour, you notice a second teacup already sitting on the tray, unused, bone china, gold-rimmed. Mr. Ashford doesn't acknowledge it. Just stares out the window, eyes on the carriage in the drive. No guest has entered. You glance at the second cup again. He follows your gaze, then softly. My brother's. He passed in January. Can't quite put it away yet. You nod once, eyes lowered, and quietly retreat. Back in the servants' hall you write a note in your head. January. Teacup. Morning still ongoing. Handle with care. That's how you operate now. Like a spy. A silent observer cataloguing every glance, every sigh, every absence. You begin to see the emotional weather of the house long before it storms. You can tell when the master has lost money. His footsteps grow heavier. The study door slams more often, and he forgets to take his gloves off before eating. You can tell when the mistress is about to cry. She calls for her tea, then lets it go cold. The second time it's sent up, she doesn't drink it either. Then she summons no one for the rest of the day. Even the cook, fierce as she is, shows signs. On days she misses her late husband, the bread burns. She blames the oven, but you know better. No one ever says these things aloud. But in a house like this, emotions are embroidered into the fabric, tucked between courses, stitched into pillow seams, hidden behind the ticking of the long case clock in the drawing room. And you read them. You log them in your memory like a second ledger. Because down here, knowledge is currency. And if you know the right thing at the right time, you can avoid the next storm before it breaks. Later that day, you stand in the back hallway polishing the brass knobs on the linen press when you hear a new voice drift from the dining room. It's sharp, measured, a clipped tone you don't recognize. No wonder your household runs ragged. You don't rotate your staff properly. You pause, cloth in hand. The voice belongs to a woman, confident, not family. You tiptoe closer. Through the door crack you glimpse her, mid-40s, richly dressed, hat still on indoors, a lorgnette glinting in her fingers like a weapon. She's speaking to the housekeeper and the master both. You should have records on all of them. Sleeping hours, behavioural notes, 3 months without rest and they start to drift, steal, break things, or worse. The master doesn't look at her. The housekeeper nods stiffly, face blank. I've seen it in better houses than yours, the woman adds. They disappear because you let them. You don't hear the response. Someone walks by behind you and you're forced to move, but the words lodge deep. They disappear because you let them. That evening you slip into the butler's pantry while Haynes is upstairs. You're not stealing, you're looking, and you find it. His key ring, resting atop a lead ledger. Not the one you've seen before. This one is slim, locked, covered in dark leather with a red ribbon sticking out like a tongue. You freeze. Do you dare? No, you don't. But you do see one thing before you leave. The initials carved into the spine of the book. E.M. Elsie. The red ribbon flutters as you close the door softly behind you. The next morning the mistress requests tea outside, in the garden, a rare thing. You carry the tray through the back path beneath hedges recently trimmed too short. The cold snaps at your ankles. As you approach the iron table, you notice she's not alone. The woman from yesterday is there again. You pour the tea silently. As you straighten, the woman turns and says casually, "Ah, you must be the quiet one." You nod, unsure whether it's a compliment or a warning. She studies you. "And how long have you been here?" 4 months, ma'am," she smiles, not kindly. "Good. That's long enough to have seen everything, but not long enough to forget what it looked like." You don't answer. You curtsy and step back, but your ears are still open. As you walk away, the woman lowers her voice, but you hear it all the same. "You'll want to keep an eye on the butler." That night, Maggie leans across the table during supper, eyes wide. "You know that woman? She's from another house, some inspector's wife or something, sent here because of, well, you know." You nod slowly. "She asked about Elsie," Maggie whispers, "and the Chelsea girl too." You look around. The kitchen is quieter tonight. The clatter is gentler, as if the walls themselves are listening again. You don't say what you're thinking, that the patterns you once took comfort in are starting to split at the seams, that the calm routines hide tremors, that the house is starting to change, and someone with gloves and a locked ledger isn't ready to let it. You never thought you'd miss the city house, not the creaky floorboards, not the endless polishing, certainly not the wine cellar with its cold secrets and colder silences. But when the trunks come out and the housekeeper starts snapping orders about wool coats and extra linens, a strange weight settles in your stomach. The Ashfords are moving, not permanently of course, just for the summer. It's a grand tradition. Families of a certain class departing London for their country estate, where the air is cleaner, the food allegedly fresher, and the social climbing even sharper. For the servants, though, it's a nightmare on wheels. You're up before dawn the next day, hauling valises, rolling rugs, folding gowns into tissue paper with trembling fingers. Every item must be accounted for, nothing misplaced, nothing creased. Every shoe must have its pair, every bonnet its matching hat box. And of course, the family travels by coach. You travel in the supply cart. Wedged between a crate of silverware and a stack of chamber pots, you share a wooden bench with Maggie and the underfootman, who's already asleep with his mouth open. The road jolts your spine with every bump. Dust fills your nose and mouth. Your teeth ache from the rattling. The sun beats down. The wheels creak. A chicken in someone's crate squawks every time the cart lurches. It's a 4-hour journey. You say nothing the whole way. When you finally arrive, the country house unfolds before you like a picture torn from a different storybook. Wide lawns, ivy-choked chimneys, windows like eyes that haven't blinked in years. You want to be impressed, but all you feel is dread. Because every grand house has its rhythm, its own web of rules, stairways, hiding spots and customs. And here, you're starting over. Worse, the local staff is already here. Estate servants. They don't like London help. You're greeted not with smiles, but with tight-lipped nods and long glances. The butler here is older, stiffer, and wears a watch chain thick enough to hang someone. The cook is a red-faced woman with one eye clouded by a cataract, who calls everyone boy, regardless of gender. They don't ask your name, they ask where your references are. You glance at Mr. Haynes, hoping for support. He just murmurs, "Blend in." So you try. You take your assigned cot in the cramped attic room that now sleeps 12 instead of 8. You draw a line in the dust between your space and Maggie's. You unpack a single dress and pin your name to the hook with a safety pin. And then you head to the scullery again, because even in the country someone must peel the turnips. There's something strange about the country house. It's not the creaking, though there's plenty of that. It's the quiet, not a peaceful quiet, an expectant quiet. Like the rooms are waiting, and they're not waiting for you. That evening, as you carry up fresh linens to the west wing, a footman from the estate house leans against the wall and says, "Be careful upstairs, some things don't like to be moved." You laugh softly, thinking he's joking, but he doesn't laugh back. He just nods at the door you're about to open and adds, "Especially in that room." You open it anyway, because in this house you still don't get to ask why. The room smells of dust and lemon oil. Heavy drapes block most of the sunlight, leaving the air cool and unmoving. As your eyes adjust, you realise this chamber hasn't been touched in months, maybe longer. You place the stack of linens gently on the cedar chest and take in your surroundings. High-backed chairs with crocheted antimacassars, a writing desk with a locked drawer, a faint outline on the wall where a portrait once hung. The silence is so thick it feels like it's leaning against your back. You move quickly. Pillowcases first, then the counterpanes. You know the rhythm now. Smooth the cloth, tuck the corners, keep your breath steady. But as you lift the last folded sheet, something flutters to the floor. Paper, a letter, unsealed, browned at the edges. You hesitate. You should leave it where it fell. But you don't. You pick it up and read just enough to recognise the name. Elsie. The handwriting is unmistakable. Looped, hurried, written in pencil. The date is 2 months ago. From the city house. Only a few lines are visible. "I'll come through the west corridor. No one uses it anymore. Leave the door open, just for a minute." Your stomach turns. You place the letter back exactly where it fell and finish the bed silently. The air feels colder now, despite the sunlight pressing weakly against the curtains. As you step out into the hallway, Maggie is waiting. She doesn't ask what took so long, but when she sees your face, her eyes narrow. You found something, didn't you? You say nothing, but she knows. The next few days pass in a haze of biting wind and cracked knuckles. The countryside may be prettier than London, but it's far less forgiving. You clean fireplaces choked with owl pellets. You sweep porches scattered with dead wasps. The estate dogs chase you every morning when you collect eggs. And all the while, you feel it. Something is wrong upstairs. The mistress has grown paler. She walks the gardens alone now, always with gloves on, even when it's hot. The master argues with the estate manager behind closed doors. You hear raised voices late at night, followed by silence that seems to settle into the walls like mildew. Then, one morning, the old cook corners you by the cold larder. Did they ever find her? You blink. Find who, ma'am? She squints. Her clouded eye glistens. The girl. The one from the London house. The one with the humming. You stare. Didn't think so, she mutters. They never do. Country or city, it's always the same. They hush it up with lace and pudding and pray no one asks questions. She walks away, muttering about liver and salt. That night, as you fold linens beside Maggie, you finally whisper, Elsie left a letter. She was supposed to meet someone in the west corridor. Maggie turns slowly. She never got there. You nod. She might have. You both fall silent, hands still moving, and the corridor, silent all this time, suddenly feels very, very close. The west corridor begins where the servants' domain ends. It's the oldest part of the house, older than the Ashfords, older than the front wing, older even than the gas lamps that never quite made it down this far. You only ever pass through it when delivering linens to the guest suites that no one stays in, or when cleaning the windows that no one opens, but now you're watching it carefully, because Maggie has started folding her sheets differently, not sloppily, deliberately. The third fold lags a beat behind the second. It's a sign. A private rhythm the two of you created last winter when the housekeeper's hearing was sharpest, and Elsie had taken to crying during meal prep. Now it means tonight. Watch. You nod once and say nothing. The day unfolds like always. Mrs. Ashford drinks her tea but leaves the biscuit untouched. Mr. Haynes rearranges the sherry decanters though none have been used. A pheasant is plucked in the kitchen, and someone breaks a bowl. No one confesses, and all the while the west corridor sleeps, until it doesn't. At 9:30, you and Maggie volunteer for extra linens. No one questions it. You light a stubby candle, can't risk the oil lamps down here, and make your way down the narrow hall. The floorboards groan differently in this part of the house, longer, slower, as though resisting each footstep. At the far end is a door that hasn't been opened in months, maybe years. It leads nowhere now, they said. Just storage. Maybe an old stairwell that was blocked up long ago. But someone, Elsie, once left a letter saying she'd be waiting here. You press your ear against the wood. Silence. Then, a faint creak, like weight shifting on the other side. You glance at Maggie. She holds up a skeleton key, pilfered days ago from Haynes's ring when he left it near the wine ledger. You nod. The lock turns. The door groans open. And there, behind years of dust and cobweb, lies a staircase. Narrow, stone, descending into blackness. It's not on the house plans. It's not in the ledgers. It's not supposed to be there. You step inside. The air changes instantly. Cold, thick, metallic, like the underside of the house is breathing. Each step downwards echoes unnaturally, swallowed before it can bounce back. The walls are close, rough stone, slick with damp. You count your steps. 13, 14, 15. At 21, the stairs end. A small brick chamber opens before you. Empty, almost. In the centre sits a wooden chair, tipped slightly to one side. A broken teacup rests near one leg. A kerchief is folded beneath it. Pale blue. Maggie picks it up, hands trembling. Elsie's. You turn toward the back wall, where something faint glints in the candlelight. A hinge, a hidden panel. You don't open it. Not yet. Because behind you, at the top of the stairs, you hear the softest sound. A door closing. You don't breathe. Not at first. You just look up, candle trembling in your hand, listening as the silence thickens above. A slow, deliberate hush, as if the house itself is holding its breath with you. Then a faint click. The door is locked. Maggie says nothing, but her eyes are wide, lips pressed tight. She clutches the handkerchief in her fist like a talisman, knuckles white. You don't panic. Not yet. Instead, you turn back to the hinged panel you spotted behind the chair. It's barely the size of a cupboard door, rimmed in brass, flush with the brick wall. You drop to your knees and run your fingers along the edges. There's no handle, but there's a dent in the stone just beside it, like something once rested there. You think of Haynes's keyring, the long iron shaft. You try the skeleton key Maggie used. Nothing. She crouches beside you. We're not supposed to be here. You glance at the kerchief again. Pale blue, folded neatly, left for someone to find. You look at Maggie. That's why we are. You press your palm against the panel. It doesn't open, but it shifts, just slightly. Not inwards, sideways. You both push. Dust falls from the ceiling as the panel gives way with a low groan. Behind it, another corridor, lower, narrower, a tunnel carved from rough earth, supported by old timber beams. The air is colder here, deader. Smells of mould and metal and something older than memory. You exchange a look with Maggie, then you both crawl inside. The tunnel stretches longer than expected, 10-15 metres. The floor tilts slightly downward. Your candle gutters in the stale air, and shadows flicker across the beams, turning them into silent sentinels. Then, another door, wooden, plain, unmarked. You reach for the latch. It's already open. Inside, the space is barely larger than a closet. Just room enough for a person to sit, or crouch, or hide. And on the floor lies a ledger. Not the housekeeper's, not the wine log, a different one. The first page is filled with names, not family, servants. Each entry lists a name, a start date, and, chillingly, a final column that simply reads, cleared. Dozens of names, some crossed out, some smudged, some familiar. You find Elsie's. Her row isn't crossed out. It ends with a note. Transfer incomplete. Contained. Your throat tightens. You turn the page. Another set of entries, deliveries, dates, quantities, candles, tea, laudanum. Then, inked heavily recently, one word, dispose. You close the book. Maggie's eyes fill with fear. What is this? She whispers. But you already know. This wasn't just a forgotten passageway. This wasn't just where someone disappeared. It was where they were kept. You crawl back the way you came, ledger tucked beneath your arm, heart hammering. When you reach the base of the stairs again, the door is open. No footsteps, no voices, just the yawning dark above. You climb fast, half pulling Maggie behind you, back into the corridor, back into the house. And as you emerge into the hallway, the candle barely lit, you see a single pair of footprints in the dust. Polished shoes, men's size. Headed away from the door, toward the butler's quarters. You don't follow, not tonight, but you will. Because now you understand the pattern beneath all the other patterns, the real one, and you intend to break it. The next morning arrives too bright. Sunlight slants across the scrubbed floors of the country house like it owns the place, warming polished wood and catching on motes of dust you're too tired to chase. But the staff wakes the same as always. Bells ring, Boots stomp, dishes clatter. Only you and Maggie know what waits beneath the floorboards, and the ledger now hidden beneath your mattress. You barely sleep, but you rise on time, because today is the servants' ball, an annual tradition, one evening of the year when, if the family's in good spirits, the household staff is permitted a few hours of sanctioned freedom, a supper of leftover delicacies, music from a borrowed violin, dances in the back hall, laughter, usually hushed, now allowed to rise. Of course, it's still work. You spend the morning starching petticoats and polishing shoes. Maggie is assigned to arranging the table. The housekeeper surveys the preparations with a tight smile. Less a celebration than a performance of generosity. Still, there's a shift in the air. The upstairs family pretends to retreat into early slumber. The cooks, unusually gracious, slip extra cream into the pudding. Even Mr. Haynes seems softer somehow. He delivers no extra orders, no sudden inspections, no cold stares today. You wonder why. By twilight, the west wing is dark, and the back hall glows with a dozen lanterns strung from hooks. Someone's pushed aside the furniture, rolled up the rugs. The air smells faintly of wax and rosewater, and for the first time in months someone is laughing freely. Maggie appears at your side in a dress you've never seen, too fine for a scullery girl. Her hair is braided, cheeks pink. "Borrowed," she whispers. "Don't tell." You nod. Yours is simpler. Clean, at least. A brooch at the throat, one that once belonged to a maid who left in silence. You pinned it there this morning without knowing why. The violinist tunes up. A footman claps in time. A girl from the laundry grins and pulls you into a reel. For a little while, you dance. Your arms remember what joy feels like. Your feet ache, but it's a new kind, earned, not demanded. Maggie spins past you, laughing, and for a heartbeat she looks like someone who's never held a secret in her life. But you still have the ledger beneath your bed, and you still remember the footprints. An hour in, someone passes you a cider. Real, sweet, cool. You sip carefully, and that's when the doors open. Mr. Haynes. No coat, no gloves. His eyes sweep the room, landing on you. He doesn't move, just watches. You lower the cup. Maggie notices. She weaves through the crowd, breathless, and says under her breath, "He knows." You nod. "I'm ready." Because this night, this brief flicker of freedom, is a mask. One last illusion before everything changes. And somewhere beneath the music you feel the house watching again. Not with suspicion, but with curiosity. As if it's wondering who you'll be when the song ends. You don't run. You don't flinch. You simply set down your cider, smooth your apron, and walk toward Mr. Haynes as though you've been summoned, not hunted. The music behind you plays on. The violin rises, carefree, floating above tension thick enough to slice. He doesn't speak at first, just turns, gliding down the corridor without looking back. You follow. Of course you do. The lanterns fade behind you. The hush of the west wing returns. The smell of beeswax and damp linen creeps into your lungs. At last he stops outside the butler's quarters. He opens the door. You step inside. The room is precise, Spartan. A desk, a wardrobe, 2 decanters, one half full, everything lined up with military care. He gestures to a chair. You remain standing. Finally he speaks. You've been looking where you shouldn't. You say nothing. He pours a glass of port. Doesn't offer you any. "I know about the crawl space," he says. "I know about the ledger." Still, you remain silent. "You could be dismissed," he adds, swirling the port. "No reference. No pay. No train fare home." You nod, once. He waits for a flicker of fear. It doesn't come. He sets the glass down, carefully, then leans in. "You're not the first to pry. You tilt your head. And you're not the first to find that room. A pause. I imagine you think you're brave, he says, that this house is some great evil, that you'll expose it, fix something. He almost laughs. You don't understand. Houses like this, they run on silence. They require forgetting. Every family does, every estate. Without it, the whole thing collapses. You meet his eyes for the first time. Maybe it should, you say. The silence that follows is the most dangerous you've heard. Then, I underestimated you. He reaches into a drawer, not for a weapon, for the ledger. The same one you hid beneath your mattress. Returned. He lays it on the desk, opens it to Elsie's page. You're clever, he says, but she was braver. You flinch. She came to me, he continues, not the other way. She wanted to leave. She had complications. You understand? You don't, but you nod. She was scared, but she had a plan. He closes the book. I helped her. You stare. She's not dead, he says. She's gone. Far from here. New papers. Different name. You try to breathe, but the air is stuck in your throat. She left the ribbon for you, he says. Said you'd look. Said you were stubborn. You blink fast. He pours another glass of port, takes a slow sip. I expect you to work tomorrow, he says, voice cold again. The Ashfords are expecting guests, and we are short one parlour maid. You nod. He watches you go. And as you leave his quarters, the violin still faint in the distance, you feel your legs trembling, not from fear, but from relief. Elsie is free, really free, and now you know it's possible. Morning returns like a cold slap. The servants' ball may have granted a few hours of borrowed joy, but the house has already shed it like an old skin. The corridor is brisk with orders. The hearths are cold. The bells start ringing before breakfast is even on the stove. You're back in your apron, back with the brass polish, back in your place. But you're not the same. Elsie is free. You whisper it to yourself while lighting the green drawing room fire. You feel it in your fingertips as you fold napkins for luncheon. A quiet heat behind your ribs, stoked by knowing the escape wasn't just a dream. It was a choice, and maybe one day it could be yours too. Then Maggie collapses. It happens just before midday in the linen hallway, between a stack of folded towels and a trolley of tea china. No scream, no drama. Just the softest thud and the shatter of one porcelain saucer. You find her curled against the wall, arms wrapped around herself, skin pale and clammy. Her lips move without sound. She hasn't eaten in days, someone mutters behind you. No more than crusts. The housekeeper appears, face tight, eyes unreadable. Get her to the cot room, now. You carry her yourself. She's light, too light. In the attic room you place a folded towel beneath her head. Her eyes flutter. I didn't mean to drop the tray, she murmurs. Didn't mean to go. You didn't go, you whisper. You're right here. But she's barely listening. She curls into herself and sleeps. You try to return to work, but the weight of her collapse presses against your chest. At supper, the footman says nothing. The cook scoffs that Maggie needs a slap and a spoon of broth. You hold your tongue. Later that night you sneak away. You climb the back stairs with a spoon, a cloth-wrapped heel of bread, and a tiny tin of cold beef jelly you stole from the pantry. Maggie's still curled on the cot, face turned to the wall. She stirs when you touch her shoulder. This is against the rules, she murmurs. So is breathing in the pantry, you say. You help her sit up. She eats slowly, hand trembling. You don't push. You just sit beside her on the edge of the cot, knees touching. She finishes half the bread, then whispers, I saw him. The master. You go still. In the wine cellar, the night Elsie left. Her fingers grip the blanket. He was drinking, alone, talking to no one, just standing there. You wait. He said, "She's not yours to save." The words hang in the attic like a noose. Maggie turns her face into the pillow. "I never told anyone, not even her." You say nothing, because now you understand what she carries. It wasn't just fear, it was guilt, and it nearly crushed her. You stay until she sleeps again. Then you head downstairs, slow, deliberate. The corridor is empty, but the bellboard flickers. One tag sways faintly. Study. You stare at it. And for the first time, you don't answer it. You turn away and walk into the laundry instead. Because Maggie needs rest. And the master, he can wait. You spend the next hour alone in the laundry, not because it's your assigned duty, but because it's the one room in the house where no one watches closely after sundown. The housekeeper's rounds end at 8. The cook avoids the damp. The butler never lowers himself to enter unless linen stocks are dangerously low, which makes it the perfect place to think. You light a single oil lamp and begin folding sheets you've already folded once today, just to keep your hands moving. The air is heavy with starch and steam, and the clack of the drying rack wheels offers a rhythm to your thoughts. Maggie saw the master that night. You try to picture it. Him, alone in the wine cellar, whispering to the dark like someone bargaining with ghosts. She's not yours to save. It's not just chilling. It's familiar. You've seen that phrase. You dig beneath a stack of ironing cloths until your fingers close around the hidden ledger. The one Mr. Haynes returned without a word. You flip back to Elsie's page. In the margin, written faintly in different ink, is a short line. At first glance it seemed like a wine notation, but now you see it clearly. Not his to control. Not yours to save. Not his to control. A conversation. A refusal. An act of defiance. Buried between pages and bricks and silence. You look down at your fingers. They're no longer trembling. They're clenched. You know what you must do. The next morning, Maggie is better. Colour has returned to her cheeks, though she still walks like the floor might betray her. You hand her a cup of warm milk. She takes it without question. Did anything happen? You hesitate, then nod once. Me? That afternoon you report to the butler's pantry. Mr. Haynes is inside, as always, counting, calculating, arranging silence like furniture. He glances up. You step forward and place the ledger, the real one, on the desk. Not hidden, not accused, just present. "I'm keeping this," you say. "It stays with me now." He says nothing, just lifts one brow as if mildly surprised. Then, "And if someone comes looking?" "I'll show them." A pause. He studies you, then leans back. "It's exhausting, isn't it?" he says at last. "Carrying what no one wants to know." You don't answer, because you finally understand something. He's not your enemy. He's just the one who stopped trying. You won't. That night, you gather Maggie, and the two of you sit in the servants' hall after the bell stopped ringing. Just the two of you. A plate of bread. A dish of stewed apples gone cold. The sound of the grandfather clock ticking behind the stair. She looks at you with a question in her eyes. You nod once. "You're leaving?" she asks. You don't answer. Not yet. Because there are 3 letters hidden in your apron. One for her, one for Mr. Haynes, and one for the house itself. You'll leave it on the stair, unfolded, signed only with your name, so that for once they have to remember you. Not the way you folded linen, not the way you poured tea, but the way you left. You wait until the sky's the colour of old ink, just past midnight, when even the housekeeper's shadow has vanished from the corridor walls. No bells ring, no footsteps echo. The house is asleep, and that's when you act. The envelope for Mr. Haynes is tucked under the inkwell on his desk. You don't need to say much, just, "She's free, I know. Thank you." The letter for Maggie is longer. You slide it beneath her pillow while she sleeps, curled on her cot like a question mark. In it, you write what you couldn't say aloud. Don't spend your whole life surviving. Live, and when you go loud. Then you pack. Not much. You've never had much. A spare dress, a coin wrapped in cloth, the brooch you wore during the servants' ball, and the ledger, folded in linen hidden in the bottom of your bag, just in case someone ever asks. You move quickly, quietly, your body flowing through the routines like water, down the stairs, past the laundry, through the scullery. You nod once to the cold stove. Thank you for the warmth. Then you slip out through the rear courtyard gate, the one the kitchen boys always forget to lock. The stars blink above you, unsure if they're witnesses or accomplices. The road curves gently into the hills, lined with hedges and foxglove, silvered in dew. Your boots are soft on the dirt. In the distance, you hear owls calling. A cart rolls by far off, bound for the early market. No one sees you, no one is meant to, but you feel seen. By the silence, by the moon, by the weight in your satchel, the proof that you are real, not a name in the ledger, not a cleared row. You. You reach the fork in the lane just as the sky begins to lighten. And there, waiting by the milestone marker, is a girl with short hair tucked under a cap, a satchel on her hip, and a look you'd know anywhere. Elsie. She grins. About time, you smile back. I had to finish the laundry. She laughs. It's not the high, polite kind. It's the kind you only hear once someone's shoulders have forgotten how to brace for orders. You didn't know how much you missed it. How'd you know I'd come this way, you ask. She shrugs. You're stubborn, but not stupid. You walk together in silence for a moment, the mist curling around your calves. Where are we going, you ask. She smiles. Where they don't write your name in a book before erasing you. That's enough for now. And as you walk, you realise something that steals your breath. The house will go on. The bells will ring. The linens will be folded. The silver polished. A new girl will take your place, but you're no longer inside it. You got out, and you're not a servant now. You're a story. You and Elsie walk until your feet ache, through meadows that glitter with morning dew, down chalky roads with no name, past stone walls where larks sing like they've never heard of duty. Neither of you says much. There's no need. Because freedom, it turns out, is a quiet thing. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets or tears. It hums softly in your ribs like a song you once knew and thought you'd forgotten. By midday you stop in a village so small it barely counts as a place. A butcher, a post house, a public house with smoke curling from its chimney like a beckoning finger. Elsie nods toward it. We can get bread there, and water. Inside, the publican doesn't ask your name. He sees two girls with worn boots and tired eyes, and simply offers you tea and half a loaf with a smear of butter. You sit near the hearth, warm for the first time in what feels like years. Elsie pulls out a scrap of paper, a map, hand-drawn, lines faint and purposeful. There's a woman near Manchester, she says, takes girls in. Former housekeeper, they say, runs a school now, teaches typing, numbers, no bells. You smile at that. No bells. No corsets either. Heaven. She traces a route with her finger. If we stay to the canal roads, we won't pass through the towns. Fewer questions. You nod. When do we leave? She glances at the sky through the dusty window. Tonight, best move by dark. You rise to help wash the cups, still half wired to tidy, to serve. The publican waves you off. You're not staff here, love. You blink. The words are foreign. Not staff. Not staff. You sit again. Just for the joy of it. Back on the road, your mind drifts. You think of Maggie, whether she found your letter, whether she'll stay, or if one day someone will look around and find her gone too. You imagine her humming again, but this time not to survive, just to enjoy the sound. You think of Mr. Haynes, of what he knows and what he's chosen to forget, and you wonder if, when he poured his evening port tonight, he noticed how quiet the house became without you. You hope he did. The sun dips low. You walk with your head up now, boots dusty, ankles sore, but upright, unhidden. Elsie pulls a grape from a passing vine and hands it to you. Tastes like freedom. It's sour, but you smile. That night you make camp near a stone bridge, using your coat as a pillow. The stars above are far less judgmental than chandeliers. The grass doesn't need polishing. The breeze doesn't tell you when to rise. And as sleep drapes over your limbs like a warm shawl, a final thought curls into your mind like steam. The house will forget your name, but not your absence. There will always be one candle that burns lower, one bell that never rings again. And in some way, that is its own kind of justice. You close your eyes, no linen to fold, no tray to carry, just the sound of your own breath, yours, alone, free. Back at the country house, the world spins on without you. A new girl arrives 2 days after your disappearance. She's from York, barely 15, and wears her nervousness like a second apron. The housekeeper jots her name in the ledger, draws a new line, and assigns her to Maggie's old duties. Maggie, who's now been promoted. Yes, promoted. She didn't ask for it. But after you vanished, she stepped into the vacuum you left behind, not to fill your shoes, but to keep others from being crushed by them. She walks a little taller now, doesn't flinch when Mr. Haynes passes, and the cook, once fond of shouting, now mutters around her instead. Something has changed, and they all feel it. Mr. Haynes notices first, not the dust on the silver, or the folded note you left on your cot. He notices that the bells sound different. It's not the system. They still ring on time, in order. But the servants below no longer jump the way they used to. They respond, but with calculation, not fear. One day, a guest rings 5 times in succession. The parlourmaid responds after only 2. The guest complains. But Mr. Haynes doesn't scold her. He just closes the study door and pours 1 less inch of port than usual. Maggie finds the hidden ledger. It takes her 3 weeks. She wasn't looking for it. Not directly. But her fingers, in cleaning the pantry shelves, press against a knot in the wood just firmly enough to pop the false panel open. She lifts the book, runs her thumb along the spine, and smiles, because she already knows what's inside. Your letter told her everything. Later that night, she brings it to her attic cot, sits with it in her lap, and slowly, carefully begins to copy the names into her notebook. She doesn't know what she'll do with them, but she knows she must. Downstairs, the kitchen has grown quieter, not from fear, from focus. The older staff speak in new ways, fewer complaints, more shared glances, more bread saved, more tea passed behind the scullery door. Someone leaves a fresh apple on Maggie's pillow. Another slips her a pair of stockings with a heel barely worn through. None of them speak your name, but everyone knows. You left something behind. Not a uniform, a shift. And one day, weeks later, a visitor arrives. Not noble, not gentry, not a guest for tea or an inspector with too many questions. Just a girl. She wears a wool skirt, scuffed shoes, and a cap too large for her head. Says she heard there might be work. That someone said a good house had space for the right kind of worker. One who knows how to keep her head down, but also knows when not to. The housekeeper frowns. Mr. Haynes peers over his glasses. Maggie, dusting the stair rail nearby, steps forward and says, "Let her try." The girl nods. Behind her ear is a pale blue ribbon, frayed at the edge, and that night, after supper, the ledger gains 1 more name. Not crossed out, not labelled cleared, just added, simple as that. Because the house remembers, and somewhere out there on the road, so do you. The girl with the blue ribbon learns quickly. She doesn't ask questions, not yet, but she watches everything. The way the kitchen boy hides bread crusts in the folds of his coat, the way Maggie pauses before each staircase, listening before she climbs, the way the housekeeper traces her finger over the ledger entries as if looking for more than numbers. She sweeps without being told, folds napkins the old way, lights the drawing room fire without smoke. She's not fast, but she's precise and careful, which is what the house requires. But every so often she hums, quietly, a tune no one recognises, except Maggie. It's a Sunday morning when she finds the mark. Not a scar, not a stain, a symbol carved faintly into the underside of the linen press drawer. 3 lines, then a loop, almost like a bird with one wing. She runs her finger over it and feels a thrill down her spine. Later she finds the same mark scratched behind a stone in the lower pantry wall, and again beneath the 3rd stair tread of the west corridor. A trail. She doesn't follow it. Not yet. She marks them quietly in her notebook, just like someone did before her. In the attic, Maggie replaces the old staff rota. No longer just a schedule, it's a kind of code now. Roles are rotated more fairly. Rest days are real, punishments less severe. No one asks how she convinced the housekeeper, but they all see the difference. Maggie keeps your letter folded in her apron pocket, creased and worn. When she's alone, she reads it aloud in a whisper. Be the next spark, not the flame, but what lights it. One evening, Mr. Haynes finds the girl with the ribbon dusting the frame of the long case clock. She curtsies, neatly. He nods, says, "You're learning." She meets his eyes. "I had a good story to follow." He doesn't respond, but as he walks away, his lips twitch, and later, in his private quarters, he removes a folded page from a drawer, a letter, signed with your name. He smooths it with care, rereads it slowly, then places it into a clean envelope and locks it in a box. Not to forget, to remember properly. That winter, a footman is dismissed. No one cries. He was careless, cruel, caught striking the laundry girl when he thought no one watched. But someone always watches now. The kitchen staff helps the girl finish her supper while she cries into her broth. Maggie wraps her hand in linen. The girl with the ribbon sits beside her all night, humming that same tune again and again until sleep takes them both. The house hears, and for once, it doesn't creak so loudly that night. 1 month later, a new girl arrives. Maggie greets her at the servants' entrance, offers her warm bread and a real smile. She asks if the girl has a ribbon. The girl says no. Maggie reaches into her apron and hands her yours. Some stories end when someone escapes, but others become quiet revolutions. Whispered, behind curtains, etched beneath floorboards, folded into pockets, passed down, one girl to another, forever. Your story ripples outward, even if your name isn't spoken, even if they don't know who started it, even if the house tries to forget, because somewhere, deep in the routine of silver polishing and linen starching, a strange new rhythm has begun to take hold, and it begins with the butler. Mr. Haynes hasn't changed his gait, his tone, or his terrifying ability to appear behind you just as you reach for the wrong tea caddy. But something in his silence has softened. You see it in the way he lingers a moment longer at the bellboard after supper, how he no longer punishes a clumsy scullery boy with extra chores, but instead sends him quietly to fetch candlesticks. Something easy, something quiet. He still holds the ledger, still wears the keys, still says nothing more than necessary. But he's begun keeping 2 ledgers now, one official, one hidden, and the hidden one has no cleared column, just names and dates and notes of kindness. The girl with the blue ribbon discovers the second ledger not by accident but by invitation. He leaves it open one evening, the corner just barely over the edge of his desk, as if daring someone to read. She does. It lists every servant currently in the house, their birthdays, their rest days, what food they dislike, who they work best beside, who's left-handed, who limps in the cold, who hums when they fold. She stares. He clears his throat behind her. She spins. "You keep this?" she asks, voice small. "I do," he says. "Why?" He considers, then shrugs. "You can't protect what you don't notice." She doesn't smile, but she begins to trust him, that trust matters, because one afternoon, while sweeping under the stairs, she finds something wrong. A crack in the floorboard, a folded square of paper wedged in the seam. At first, she thinks it's yours, but it's not. It's older, written in faded ink, careful cursive. "Don't go alone. They watch the West Wing after dark." A warning, not recent. She brings it to Maggie, who reads it once, then closes her eyes. "That handwriting," Maggie whispers. "It's from May." "May?" "She left before you came, right after Elsie." The girl with the ribbon stiffens. "Left," she repeats. But Maggie's voice is flat. "That's what they said." They searched the corridor together that night. Not through secret panels or crawl spaces, just with eyes wide open, with lamps, with gloves, with steady hearts. They find the West Wing's smallest room still sealed, dust gathered thick on the knob, a single button on the windowsill. Small. Shell. Too small for a footman, just right for someone like May. The room tells them nothing more, but it doesn't have to, because the silence is confirmation. The next day the housekeeper is informed, not accused, not confronted, just informed that something was found, that someone is missing, that someone else remembers, and to everyone's surprise she doesn't deny it. She just nods and writes May's name back into the ledger, not as cleared, just as lost but not forgotten, a line, a chance. That night the staff lights one extra candle in the kitchen. They don't say who it's for, but when the girl with the ribbon walks by, she sets your brooch beside the flame, and for the first time the others don't look away. The next morning the kitchen is quieter than usual, but not in fear, in reverence. The extra candle still burns low in the corner, its wax pooling onto a chipped saucer that no one dares move. Beside it, your brooch glints faintly in the early light, nestled in a folded handkerchief like an offering. Even the cook, who normally scowls at anything not made of butter or bone, stirs her porridge more gently. Maggie calls a meeting. Not officially, just a long tea break. The staff gathers in the scullery, shoulder to shoulder, soot on aprons, crumbs on sleeves, eyes that no longer dart toward doorways. Maggie speaks first. "I think we've all known something's been wrong, not just once, not just with one girl, but for a long time." A murmur. She lifts May's note, the one tucked under the stair. She didn't leave, she vanished, just like others before her, and we let the house keep moving like it was just a spilled cup. She pauses, her eyes scan the group, but not anymore. The kitchen maid, elbows flour dusted, speaks next. "I knew May. She used to leave scraps for the rats behind the larder, said even vermin deserve to eat in winter." She laughs, but it comes out brittle. The boot boy, still too young for whiskers, adds, "She gave me half her bread when I tore my heel. Said I'd work better if I didn't limp." The housekeeper appears at the door. Everyone freezes, but she doesn't scold them. She steps in, closes the door behind her and says softly, "There was another. Before May. Before even Elsie." A silence so still you can hear the pantry clock ticking. She had no ribbon, just a voice that wouldn't stay quiet. "What happened to her?" someone whispers. The housekeeper folds her hands. "I didn't ask then. That was my sin." They talk for an hour. They share names that had disappeared, habits remembered, little kindnesses that no one had dared acknowledge before. A secret archive builds, not of documents, but of memory. The ledger grows, unofficially, not just of who works when and where, but who matters, and everyone does. Outside, winter bites at the windows, but inside the fire roars higher. The girl with the ribbon pulls her cot closer to the others that night. So do two more maids, then the boot boy, then the cook's assistant. They sleep near each other, not for warmth, but for protection, because no one will vanish again, not without a reckoning. You're not there, but your presence is. In every corner they sweep, every bell they delay to answer, every rule they quietly rewrite. You are the ghost of the house, not in chains, but in courage, and this time no one's turning away, not from what was done, not from what they've become. Down in the cellar, beneath an old barrel of soap, the girl with the ribbon finds one last mark, a set of initials. Yours, scratched faintly into the stone. She presses her fingers to the letters, smiles and whispers, "You stayed." The months stretch on, and spring tries its best to arrive. But the snow clings longer this year. The branches stay brittle, the ground never fully softens, and still the house hums. Not with joy, but with something stronger, resolve. You feel it in the way boots tread now, more firmly. The way eyes meet across a corridor and don't flinch. The way the silver gets polished not to shine for guests, but to shine for themselves. It's Maggie who starts the next revolution, and she does it with a curtain rod. It begins in the blue guest chamber, the one where Lady Hastings once insisted the linen smelled of peasants and regret. Maggie's up there replacing the drapes when she tugs too hard and the old bracket gives way. Clang. Dust and plaster everywhere, and something else. A parcel, tied with twine, wedged behind the wall slats. Not money, not jewels, but letters. Stacks of them. Some sealed, some opened and refolded dozens of times. All from servants, addressed to family or lovers, or to no one at all. None of them posted, some dated 5 years back. Maggie brings them downstairs in her apron, dust sticking to the edges. She spreads them on the long kitchen table. The staff gathers, mouths parted. "Why weren't they sent?" the laundry girl asks, voice small. No one answers, but they all know. Too many of them remember asking for stamps and being told later. Too many recall Haynes's sharp glance when he inspected outgoing parcels. Too many never received replies, because their letters never left. The housekeeper joins them. This time, no pretences. She lifts one envelope gently, reads the address. "Scotland," she whispers. "This girl's mother thought she'd run off." Maggie looks up. She didn't. She begged to go home. The housekeeper swallows. "I remember. She had a limp. Walked like her boots were 2 sizes too big." "She said the boots were a gift," the girl with the ribbon adds. "From her sister." Everyone stares at her. She shrugs. "It was in the letter." That night the kitchen transforms, not into a dining hall or ballroom, into a postal office. They sort the letters by region, ink new envelopes, bake them over the hearth to dry. The footman volunteers to ride into town on his day off to post them himself. 2 maids begin crafting a new system. A box with a lock, 2 keys, and a pledge that no letter shall ever be read, lost, or held again. The staff signs the pledge with a kitchen spoon for a pen. Even the housekeeper adds her name. Haynes doesn't. But he leaves a stamp book by the kitchen door the next morning. Full, untouched. The brooch is now a symbol. It's passed from pocket to pocket, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. If you wear it, you carry the fire for that week, and with it, the right to speak up, the right to question, the right to care loudly, and no one dares silence it anymore, not even Haynes, especially not him. By the time the lilacs bloom, just barely, frost still clinging to their tips, the staff has changed, not replaced, transformed. The girl with the blue ribbon no longer sweeps hallways alone. The boot boy doesn't cry when he drops a dish. And Maggie keeps a notebook in her apron now, not to track duties, but ideas. Ideas for things no servant would have dared whisper a year ago. Rotating meal prep, shared rest afternoons, a new way to polish silver that doesn't peel your fingers raw. They call it the quiet rebellion. Not because it shouts, but because it works. One morning a guest arrives, an old friend of the family, one who hasn't stayed at the manor in years. She walks in trailing fur and perfume, and the sort of contempt that drips from the hem of every wealthy widow. She snaps her fingers for tea, complains that her goose is underspiced, throws her gloves at the new maid when they're not warmed. And the staff? They don't flinch, they serve, they nod, but they see each other, and in the kitchen afterward they laugh, not cruelly, but triumphantly, because this woman's icy rudeness no longer melts them. The manor may belong to her friend, but the house belongs to them now. That evening the girl with the ribbon finds a letter tucked beneath her cot. Not sealed, just folded. Inside, a drawing. Simple, sketched in charcoal. It's the servant quarters, but cleaner, brighter. There's a rug, a clock that ticks, a shelf with books, and 6 cots, all occupied. In the corner, the girl herself, her ribbon neatly tied, holding the brooch. It's unsigned, but there's a mark, a small loop, 3 lines, the old symbol. She runs her thumb over it, smiling, then pins it inside her apron over her heart. Weeks pass. The changes settle like dust, quiet and constant. The cellar gets organised. The pantry gains a second lock and only the staff have keys. The master never asks where the extra food goes, because he never noticed it missing before. But now it feeds a grandmother down the lane, a boy with fever and no bread, a family who once sent their daughter here and never got a single letter back. Haynes begins teaching, just once a week. Reading, for those who want it. Letter writing, arithmetic. Even the housekeeper joins in, stumbling over words she hasn't used aloud in decades. They do it in the attic, beneath the creaking beams, right where you used to sit. Your old apron still hangs on a hook nearby. No one moves it. No one dares. The girl with the ribbon touches it sometimes before the lesson begins, not to remember, but to promise. In the West Wing they plant lilacs, not inside, of course, but outside the shuttered window of that quiet, locked room, the one May never returned from, the one no one dares open, but no one ignores anymore. Each staff member brings something to the base of that window, a ribbon, a note, a spoon, a button, and when the lilacs finally bloom, they stand around it in silence, not mourning, just honouring. You, May, Elsie, and every name that never made it into the official ledger. Somewhere in the depths of the house, beneath the ticking clocks, behind the stiff portraits and silver-framed memories of people who never polished a shoe, there is a warmth that wasn't there before. You can't measure it, can't chart it on a roster, but you feel it when the kettle sings too loud and no one minds, when the boots are left muddy because someone had to carry the butcher's boy home, when the youngest maid sneezes during prayers and gets a biscuit instead of a glare. The house hasn't softened, the people have strengthened. There's a visitor today, not a guest, a girl, 12, maybe 13. Her eyes too wide, hands too clean. She arrives at the tradesman's entrance with a satchel and a silence that doesn't feel shy. It feels trained. They say she's come from a house down in Cornwall, dismissed for asking too many questions. Maggie raises an eyebrow at that. The housekeeper just nods and writes her name at the bottom of the unofficial ledger. No clearance date, no assigned post, just one note. Let her rest. The girl sleeps for 2 days straight, wakes to porridge and a boiled egg. No one presses her. They let her wander. Let her trail the boot boy while he scrubs coal dust. Let her sit with the cook's assistant and peel carrots with clumsy fingers. Let her drift. Until one afternoon she stops before the West Wing window, the one with the lilacs. She studies the buttons, the spoons, the pale purple blooms. Then quietly she removes her satchel, pulls out a locket, tiny, brass, empty inside, and sets it beside the flower pot. No one asks her who it belonged to. They just make space. At dinner that night the brooch has passed again. It lands with her, the new girl. She blinks, holds it gently, then whispers, "I didn't know her." "No," the girl with the ribbon says, "but she would have known you." The new girl smiles. Not big, but real. By candlelight, Maggie reads aloud from one of the old letters. It's one no one can trace, a note from a maid who signed only with a drawing of a teacup and the word sister. If they forget our names, let them at least remember we were kind. That's enough to keep a soul warm. Everyone nods. They don't speak after that. They don't need to, because kindness here doesn't have to shout anymore. It lingers, like steam in a laundry room, or lilac petals on a windowsill, or the weight of a brooch in a small, steady hand. Even the master notices something's changed. He doesn't quite say it, but his orders are softer, his demands less sharp. Once he asks why there are fresh pastries in the cellar. No one answers, and he doesn't ask again. The house shifts around him, and for the first time, he learns to move with it. Not because he has to, but because resistance feels like loneliness now. And the staff? They are not lonely. Not anymore. Spring gives way to summer slowly, like the house itself isn't quite sure it's ready to believe in warmth again. The walls creak less, the chimneys sleep longer. And one day, the girl with the ribbon hangs her laundry and notices something peculiar. Laughter. Real laughter. Not the pinched, stifled giggles of girls trying not to wake the house, but open, full-throated joy tumbling out from the cellar stairs where the boot boy is showing the new girl how to juggle potatoes. One hits the wall, one hits him square in the chest. They collapse into giggles, and no one yells, not even the cook. She's too busy humming over her dough the brooch pinned to her apron now. The ledger, their ledger, has grown fat. Not just with names and duties, but with drawings, inside jokes, pressed flowers. A recipe someone swears makes tea scones taste like summer rain. Even a page for misheard phrases, like when the laundry maid thought roast capon was ghost apron. It's a living book now, one no master ever reads, but one that holds the true history of this house. The attic classroom is fuller these days, chairs pulled from everywhere. Some sit on crates. One girl uses a chamber pot lid as a writing board. Haynes, still surprisingly patient, points at a chalkboard now leaning against the old wardrobe. "Spell freedom," he says. The new girl tries. Misses a letter. Tries again. The girl with the ribbon helps her sound it out. And when she gets it right, the room erupts. Not loudly, just proudly. Like spelling freedom somehow made it realer. Like now they all own a little piece of it. There's a garden now, not official, just a sliver of soil behind the stables where nothing useful ever grew. But Maggie declared it theirs, and that was that. They plant herbs, then carrots, then wildflowers, just because. They tend it between shifts. No one orders them to, but the garden grows anyway. just like everything else here, not fast, but firm. One evening, the new girl finds a loose brick behind the pantry shelf. Inside, a single glove, a scrap of ribbon, a folded note that simply says, "Not gone, just watching." She doesn't show it to the others, not yet. She tucks it back, brick and all. Some things are meant to wait. In the main hall, a portrait is removed for cleaning. Behind it, etched in the plaster, nearly faded away, E.S., small, crooked, carved with care. Someone asks if they should scrub it out. The girl with the ribbon just stares. "No," she says, "that's the first name we ever saved." She presses her fingers to the initials and doesn't cry. Not because she isn't sad, but because grief here doesn't live alone anymore. It shares a room with strength, and songs in the scullery, and letters that always get sent. The house still creaks, still hides shadows, still demands quiet steps and careful eyes. But beneath all that, something deeper hums. A kind of peace, a kind of power, a kind of you. Still here, still watching, still written into every cracked tile and candle wick. And in this house now, that's not something to fear. It's something to live by. You wake, if one can wake in a dream, with the smell of coal smoke and orange peels in the air, the smell of survival, the smell of memory. Somewhere downstairs a kettle whistles, too loud and a little proud, and upstairs footsteps cross the creaky floorboards with no effort to hide. Because in this version of the house, no one's sneaking anymore. No one's hiding in linen cupboards or behind locked doors. They're living here, out loud. It's cleaning day. Not the forced kind, the frantic scrub before guests arrive kind, but something gentler, chosen. The staff has made it into a tradition, an unofficial holiday of sorts. Each person picks a room, a drawer, a wall panel. They dust, mop, scrub, and inevitably discover. Today, Maggie finds a sewing needle wedged into the floorboards beneath the head housemaid's bed. Rusted, bent. "Poor thing," she murmurs, broke under pressure. She doesn't toss it. She places it in a tin on the windowsill, alongside a string of buttons, a cracked teacup, a single gold earring, and the comb that once belonged to the girl who never returned from the West Wing. Each object a tiny, holy artifact, their very own museum of the unseen. The housekeeper now keeps 2 ledgers, one for the family, still pristine, one for the staff, still growing. Inside it, today's entry reads, "A girl laughed so hard she snorted tea through her nose. We gave her the brooch on the spot." The brooch isn't for silence anymore, it's for moments like that. In the attic, someone has painted the rafters. Badly. Clouds, stars, a strange smiling moon. The chalk still dusts the floor. The new girl stands below, cheeks pink. "Got bored," she says. No one tells her off. Instead, the cook mutters, "Needs a comet," and picks up a brush. By day's end, the attic sky is full, and no one wants to leave when lessons finish, because they've built their own constellations now, on purpose, with paint and laughter and names that were never supposed to matter. They get visitors sometimes, young ones, old ones, servants from other houses who just happen to be in the area. They leave with fresh bread in their bags and strange looks in their eyes. Not jealousy, just disbelief, as if trying to puzzle out how a house like this, same bricks, same rules, feels like something else entirely. And those who really see it, they stay, one by one. The names fill the unofficial ledger like a garden growing wild, out of control and beautifully alive. One of them, a boy who used to shine boots in London, writes a song. He plays it on a whistle made from a hollowed spoon handle. It's a silly tune, fast, off-key, but it gets stuck in your head like a nursery rhyme or a chant at midnight. And soon, even Haynes hums it while folding laundry. He doesn't admit it, but they all hear him. Because this house echoes everything now, not just footsteps, but joy. The end doesn't come with a bell. No dramatic final supper. No master proclaiming freedom from the upstairs window. No headlines, just a Tuesday, cloudy, with a breeze that smells like damp stone and rising dough. You stand in the servants' hall one last time, though you no longer wear the apron. You haven't for a while. It's been passed on twice now. The brooch is tucked into a frame with a pressed lilac behind glass. They keep it there for everyone to see, not as decoration, as evidence. Proof that something happened here, something impossible, something no one outside would believe. The house still hosts guests, still holds secrets, still asks too much from the floorboards and too little from the portraits. But it's different now. In the kitchen, a boy reads recipes out loud, slowly, while 3 girls test which scone batter makes the least mess. In the stairwell, someone has chalked a tiny poem, crooked and hopeful. And in the scullery, someone sings, badly, but with feeling. Maggie retires. She doesn't say where she's going, just that she's finally going to take her own name back. And when she leaves, she pins her last note to the pantry door. They said we were replaceable. They were right, because we kept replacing each other with better versions of ourselves. They keep the note there, even after the ink fades, even after the pantry's repainted, because now it belongs to the wall. The new girl isn't new anymore. She teaches letters in the attic now, tells the story of the first time she saw the lilacs bloom, mentions your name only once. But it's enough. You're still here, in the way the boots line up without being told, in the soft knock before someone enters a room they used to be afraid of, in the way they press tiny gifts into the hands of girls on their first day, just like they did for you. Outside, the garden overflows. Tomatoes, radishes, mint that's grown wild and unruly. A boy with coal-dusted cheeks grumbles while weeding, but doesn't stop, because this is his house now, too. And every once in a while, on the first frost of the season, they gather in the West Wing. No ritual, no speeches, just a quiet roll call of every name they've added to the ledger. Some real, some invented, all theirs. They light a candle, place it on the windowsill beside the brooch, and let it burn until morning. The house will go on. But now it tells the truth, with lilacs and ledgers and lessons, and laughter that echoes long after the kettle cools. It may never make the papers, or the books, but in every quiet corridor the story remains, not of the masters, but of the ones who scrubbed, served and reclaimed, the real owners, the secret lives, the ones who turned survival into resistance and resistance into legacy. And now the hallways are quiet again, not the brittle silence of rules, but a gentler kind, like a house breathing softly after a long, long winter. The kettle is cooled, the boots are drying by the fire, and somewhere the lilacs sway against the pane, their scent curling around the corners of your mind like a memory half remembered. You've seen it all now. You've walked through ash and candlelight, scrubbed floors beside strangers who became family, and slipped letters through doorways where no words were ever allowed. You've been past the brooch, you've worn the apron, you've made room in the ledger for the next name, and though the world outside still races, still forgets, still dismisses, you remember. Not just the pain, but the quiet victories, the laugh in the scullery, the chalk stars in the attic, the garden no one gave permission to plant. You belonged here, not because you were allowed, but because you took it. And in doing so, you rewrote the rules. So now let that brooch rest. Let the spoon song fade. Let the dust settle softly in the morning light. The house is safe now. And so are you. Close your eyes. Breathe in the lilac air. The kettle won't boil again till dawn.